Dr. Liz. So I'm gonna start by sharing my screen. Just a second. Okay. Okay. And then I'm gonna put it. Okay. So welcome all of you. Okay, great. Welcome all of you, and thank you a lot for attending my webinar hosted by TESOL. And before just I go through my presentation, promoting the effectiveness of education by implementing a change, let me first of all tell you that by the end of my presentation, you are supposed to be able to practice the most effective leadership approach or type, which is distributed leadership. Not only this, but also you will know how distributed leadership will lead you to implement a change easier and faster. You will also get to know more information about sustainable development goals and how implementing sustainable development goals or SDGs are so important and effective in implementing a change in your organization or or how it is important to your learners even or to you as teachers. I will leave you after this webinar enthusiastic to create a motivated and community responsible learners and leaders. So whether you are a novice teacher or a mid-career or even a semi-retired teacher, I will leave you with a lot of questions with leadership and SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals. So let me start with my agenda. And as I said that, of course, in my agenda, I'm gonna discuss distributed leadership, which is the first thing to be discussed for implementing a change. The difference between, of course, distributed leadership and shared leadership, flipping the system, implementing sustainable development goals. And inside sustainable development goals, I'm going to talk about critical pedagogy in education, role of leaders in SDGs implementation, reasons why they are not followed properly, and suggestions to be done by leaders to overcome the obstacles. So let me start by saying that leadership is the influence that a leader has over other people. It is the interaction between the leaders and the people they lead, and most importantly, it is a change that a leader wants to bring. So let me say that leaders are people who set the goals, the plans, and the steps towards change. They look for solutions, for reasons. So, for example, in organizations such as schools, if the change has great effect over the learning process, then of course this positive impact will be reflected on teachers, students, and the whole school. So let us go forward and start with distributed leadership. And let me say that the best principles create the conditions where distributed leadership can best support school transformation and change. So let me tell you that nowadays, actually, in our schools, we face much chaos sometimes, and sometimes we have a lot of challenges that we face, and maybe you can see learning interested or who are not motivated in learning. That's why distributed leadership would be the best solution. Why? Because it adapts to different challenges and solutions. And actually, not only this, it depends on the skills of each person. So when you distribute the leadership, the decision does not depend on one person. It is not one man show. No, you save each person skill to find a solution for the faced challenges. So, of course, depending on the idea of one teacher or one person or one leader may implement a change, but of course it will be very slow or with no significant improvement. Why? because you depend on one person, so it is one way of thinking, it is one decision. Whereas if you depend on more than one person, so of course you make use of each one's leadership skill and each one skill and thoughts for finding solutions to different challenges that you may face in your schools. But let us see, how can we do this? Like, how can I distribute leadership? How can I apply distributed leadership in my organization, whether it is a school or university or whatsoever? So in order to implement the distributed leadership, we have to introduce the concept of social capital. So let us agree that in order to have distributed leadership, as I said, we should have good relationships. This is so important between all school members. And here comes the social capital when you have mutual understanding and behaviors that bind members of the same workplace. When you have shared values and you have and you seek to have mutual benefits, of course, positive outcome will be the result. I'm going to give you an example for social capital. All of us in our organizations have the mentoring classes or the coaching classes. So let me tell you that sometimes you have a mentoring class or the peer reflection between two teachers, or for example, when you have mentoring classes from a supervisor or from a teacher who is in a leadership role, for example. When you have these mentoring classes with the reason and with the goal of having a mutual benefit. So here you have social capital. So you are not having mentoring classes in order to just evaluate or criticize the person. No, you are having such class in order to have mutual benefits, in order to share ideas, in order to seek improvement. But it is not done like a kind of criticism or evaluation or something like this. No. So this is when you have this kind of social capital, the mutual understanding, and you know the goal behind the mentoring classes, behind the class visit, and you are sure that it is just done for mutual benefits, then of course you have a kind of social capital. If you have social capital, you will move to something higher, which is institutionalization, which is the act of making distributed leadership part of a school community. How? When these mentoring classes and the coaching classes or the peer reflection become normal and accepted by all school members, so we all accept this. So I know, for example, when you are, for example, in a school and you have a class visit, sometimes you have a sudden class visit, or sometimes you have an agreed one. Sometimes you accept, sometimes it doesn't depend if you accept or not, if you agree on this or not. So no, we do not need this approach. We need to reach something called institutionalization, which is we have these classes and the objective or the goal of it is mutual benefit, and it is done upon acceptance, and we all agree, and it is normal. Okay, so we reach here institutionalization level. So you have social capital, which is the good relationship and the mutual understanding. And of course, you are going to have institutionalization. So if we have good relationships, and I know that this thing is done out of benefit, so of course, I'm going to welcome this, and I will reach the level of institutionalization that I'm going to accept. And okay, it's okay, and we all can do this mentoring class. If you did this, if you applied the social capital and then the institutionalization, so of course you reach the highest level, which is fluidity. And what is this? Of course, you know, when you start something, you become expert in it. So this is fluidity. It is the quality of acting freely between all the school members. So leadership is distributed and not shared or acted by one person. So now you became expert in in these actions. It is equality. You are doing it freely. It's okay, خلاص. So leadership is no longer exclusive for one person. No. As I said, it is distributed and not shared. And this is very, very, very important point because while I'm speaking, you may telling yourself, yes, we do this. Ah, yes, we have distributed leadership. But let me tell you that no, you may have shared leadership, but you do not know uh, that this is shared, not distributed. So let me ask you an important question. Are distributed leadership and shared leadership synonyms? What do you think? What do you have in your schools? Distributed leadership or shared leadership? And are they synonyms? Are they the same? So before writing the answer in the chat box, let me first of all introduce what is distributed leadership and shared leadership, why they are different. Distributed leadership is about the act of practicing leaders by all school members. So you practice the leadership roles. You as a school member or in a university or whatsoever, you practice this, you practice leadership. Okay, so you act as a leader. Whereas shared leadership, no. With shared leadership, you have a formal leadership role, and this person assigns to you leadership role. So you are not practicing, you are assigned. You are assigned. So you are not free to act as a leader or to practice leadership roles. No, you are just waiting to be assigned by somebody else. So this is the difference between distributed leadership and shared leadership. So they are not synonyms, although both of them seek change, but they are not synonyms. Yes, sometimes you use shared leadership actually in your schools, and it may implement change, but of course it is not that effective as distributed leadership, and it is not as fast as implementing distributed leadership. So the point is, how are you going to practice leadership? Are you just practicing leadership freely? And I'm going to tell you how in the next slides. You have this opportunity, or you are just a teacher and you are waiting for the leadership role to be assigned to you. So this is just the difference. So if you think that you have distributed leadership in your institution, you can just write, yes, we practice the distributed leadership and we have the freedom to make decisions. We have the freedom to suggest. We have the freedom to share ideas. And if you think that you have in your place shared leadership, you can just write in the chat box, no, we have shared leadership. So I'm waiting for your interaction, and of course I'm gonna have a look after the presentation. So if the roles of leadership will be distributed, then of course introducing the strategy, flipping the system would be a must. So I used to teach at the very, very beginning before I start my MA. And I have heard about flipping the classroom technique. But now, after starting my MA, I noticed that we have something called flipping the system. So I don't know if you have heard about flipping the system or not, but let me just go and tell you what do you mean by flipping the system. When teachers become the instigators, creators, and implementers of educational change, actually flipping the system is nothing but the result of having distributed leadership roles. So as I told you, what we need to have is to have not only a teacher, but a leader. So when we just have the decision, when we just have the opportunity to make decisions, so now we just flipped the system. So I'm not waiting for the principal or the supervisor to assign me the leadership roles. No, I just flipped the system, and now teachers became the implementers of educational change. They became at the forefront of educational change and reform and co-constructing change. So they are decision makers and not just followers. Uh, so, uh, and of course, if you are going to have flipping the system, let me tell you that you are going to have something called collective efficacy. And through collective efficacy, educational success occurs. And let me tell you what you mean by collective efficacy. Remember when I told you about social capital? When I told you in order to have the distributed leadership, you have to take care of the relationships between all teachers, the teamwork. So this is what we call the collective efficacy. When all teachers start to work together and they start to share their ideas and they start to share their goals, of course, positive outcomes will be the result. So again, they look at their schools as a place where they stimulate their skills and they seek to reach professionalism with their colleagues. And actually, when I was talking with Dr. Rees, and she told me about TESOL career path development, and she shared a very nice paper about the topic. And I looked at that part of the title tackles, of course, the life balance. Okay, and let me tell you that, of course, we need to have this in our schools, the good relationships, because this good relationships is the result of distributed leadership, and it is going to bring us the collective efficacy. And when we move forward, you will know the collective efficacy not only will implement the change or will result in educational success, no, it will also implement the sustainable development goals. So if I'm talking about the teacher as a leader, then what is the role of the principals? So if we have this, so what is the role of the principal or the educational consultant or the supervisor? So let me talk about the principal's role. The principal role has a formal leadership role, because when I speak, yes, I know that of course all the schools have like a leaders. So but these they have formal leadership roles. But yes, in the same school you may have informal leadership role. As for example, when I say, please let your teachers be leaders. So when they practice the leadership, so this is informal role. But principals have the formal leadership roles now. They are having this role. So principals play the role of push and pull. That we say push and pull leadership role. So what do you mean by push and pull leadership role? Let me frankly say that, of course, not all teachers are ready for a change. And of course, not all teachers are ready to practice something new. And here we have the principal's role. As a leader, you should, of course, create a learning community. And how can you create a learning community? You should settle the curiosity and the interest. You should make your teachers motivated. So the principal's role, they create learning conditions that activate normal curiosity, interest, and motivations. And this how can happen? It can happen, of course, by spotting the goals and the view of your school or of the institute where you work. Just to spot the goals, the vision of the place, and let teachers know what is expected from them. And don't forget to always praise and encourage. This is so important. Uh, just give them this, say thank you, appreciate. So this is just your role to create the learning community. And this is so important. So teacher leaders should be the tools of any organization seeking change. And this would not happen unless principals give support for teachers, as well as the freedom to talk. Yes, teachers actually need to talk about their accomplishment, face challenges. They should lead, they should suggest, they have the vital roles inside and outside the classroom. And of course, in that case, they will be able to change. So, like this, I need you just put in your mind that teacher is the leader. So, again, back again to the career path development. If you are in the mid career, or if you are in the mid career, or you are even in the semi-retired, if you are semi-retired, give your teachers the chance to practice leadership roles. So try to implement the distributed leadership and not to share your leadership. And you, even if you are just starting your career as a novice teacher, or you switch your career and you are starting to be a teacher, think that you are the leader. Okay, and of course, if you think this, you will like if you see yourself a leader, of course you will practice this easily. So as I told you, that the first thing I'm going to talk about is distributed leadership. And the second thing that will implement the change is Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. SDGs was introduced and first in the United Nations 2030 agenda. They are actually 17 goals, and they fight poverty, inequality, corruption, and many other things. But the most important thing that they encourage is development of lifelong learning opportunities. So they need education to reach all people. They need education to become sustainable, not just an information that students use and then throw after the exam, and not just a money earned job for teachers or a profitable project for school owners. So the role of education system to sustainable development of world was revealed by the universal goal of providing inclusive and equitable education, lifelong learning opportunities for all people. And here comes a very important question that I'd like to ask you about, which is, do we have sustainable education in our schools? What do you think? Do you have in your school a sustainable education, or just piece of information that you give as a teacher for your student, and your student use in your exam, and then it's no longer found? Before you answer this, or you may know, but if you do not know, let me first of all tell you, you have to know if you have banking education or problem posing education. Because if you have the banking education, if your curriculum serves the banking education, then of course you do not have sustainable education. So what do you mean by banking education? It is like its name. When you have information in a bank, whenever it is needed, you withdraw the information, spend it in the exam, and then it is no longer found. And who deposits this knowledge in the learners? The teacher. So this is what we call the one fits all model. What is the one fits all model? It is just a system that teachers play the role of sage on stage. What is sage on stage? They are the only source of the knowledge. You are just a recipient, as your students are recipients. They are just sitting, receiving the information, and spending it in the exam, and it's no longer found. And the information and this knowledge may be relevant to their lives, and maybe it is not relevant to their lives. So if you have banking education, of course you do not have sustainable education. If you have problem posing education, which we are supposed to have, and we should move actually from banking education to problem posing education. Why? Because actually in problem posing education, you move from having knowledge to skills. And I do not mean by skills the 21st century skills, what we call critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. No, it is not only about having these skills, it is how you relate these skills to your life. And this is again what we call learning transfer. So we need to transfer from banking education to problem posing education in order to have something called learning transfer. What do you mean by learning transfer? When you try to relate the skills, the 4 C's, the critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, to areas in our lives. And why we should do this? Because this will do 2 things. Number one, it will serve the sustainable development goals. And let me tell you that in these goals, when I said that there are 17 goals, like we have to fight poverty, inequality, and so on and so forth, they have a very good concept called one service all. What do you mean by one service all? If we worked on one goal only, this goal may serve the others. How? For example, if I work in education, this education, this kind of education may serve the other goals. Why? Because you are going to use the skills that you learn in serving your community, in serving your society, in finding solutions to different problems in your society. So of course you create a motivated learner, a creative learner who is engaged, and of course you started to present a relevant knowledge, not irrelevant knowledge. So if you think that you have banking education in your school, you can write in the chat. If you think that you have problem posing education, something that relates your skills, the total skills to your society problems, and encourage your learners to solve these problems, then you can write that, yes, I have problem posing education. And of course, if you have problem posing education, this means that you have sustainable education. So let me tell you that teaching and learning should be a process of inquiry, of critique. It should also be a process of constructing, of building a social imagination. So as I said, knowledge is relevant only when it comes or begins with the experiences and the culture of your society. When it comes from the problems of your society, when it comes from your society, when it is relevant to your society, it is critical because of course it has a challenge, or it is somehow problematic, and it is going to be transformative when this is what we call the learning transfer, when you give it to your students or your learner and ask them to use this knowledge to find solutions to your community, to find suggestions to the society problems. So what is the relationship between critical pedagogy, problem posing education, educator and learner? Actually, they are interconnected, because critical education, critical educator communicate with learners about society, about his culture, and ask them to reflect on different life aspects. So through critical educators, learners know what actions to be done towards their society. So of course, knowledge will be relevant, and of course, this kind of education will serve the like the critical pedagogy will serve the problem posing education, because critical educator actually talks about the problems of the society. And of course, the result will be a community responsible learner and not a recipient. Learners are no longer recipients of knowledge. They are creators, active participants. They are aware of their community and how they are going to solve the problems. And here you have a sustainable education. And of course, this is a very important point for implementing change, because if we said that the United Nations aim at implementing the SDGs by 2030, so of course you are not going only to change your small community, which is the school, no, but you are going to play on the large scale, the society. But actually, we have some obstacles for implementing the SDGs. So to move from this banking education, or if you have problem posing education, but it is not serving your society. So in order to move to be standing in the correct track, we have some obstacles. Number one, of course, finances. So, for example, I'm going to give you an example. For us here in Egypt, we have something called International Baccalaureate Schools, the IB schools. We have government IB schools. Actually, the IB system, if you have heard about it, or the International Baccalaureate system, they serve the SDGs. But of course, in order to have more schools, more IB schools in Egypt that will serve the SDGs curriculum, of course, we need money. We need, even in the school itself, we need the appropriate conditions for implementing the SDG curriculum. Maybe we need to change the curriculum. We need qualified teachers. So, of course, we need money. So, finance, yes, because this kind of education costs a lot. The second thing is knowledge, awareness, and of course, engagement. Like when I say, for example, try to implement SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals in your curriculum. How many of us know? So if you have heard before about SDGs, you can just write in the comments, yes, of course, I know the SDGs. But if you do not know,
Kariman,
yes.
Your audio is a little bit weak now. I don't hear you well, just to let you know.
Okay.
Maybe you can't do anything if you can. Just to let you know.
Is that clear now?
So far,
Clear?
it's better. Yes, thank you.
Better? Okay.
Yeah, better.
Okay. Okay. So as I was saying that we need the knowledge and the awareness and the engagement. So as I told you, I didn't know if you know about SDGs or not. So you can just write in the comments. Have you heard about Sustainable Development Goals? Do you implement Sustainable Development Goals in your education, in your extracurricular activities? So of course we need the knowledge and the awareness. We need to raise awareness sessions. We need to let people know what do you mean by SDGs? And if you have banking education, have you heard about problem posing education? Have you tried using it? So of course we need the knowledge, the awareness. And then the third obstacle that we face are capabilities. So if you have heard about SDGs, do you have qualified teachers to implement problem posing education in order to implement the SDGs? Do we have this? Okay, so regarding the curriculum, is your curriculum serving the sustainable development goals? Do you have this kind of curriculum? Does your curriculum create a community responsible generation? So I know that not all of us are ready and they can change the curriculum. Of course, I'm talking about something that it takes maybe years in order to change your curriculum. But let me tell you that you as a teacher, if you are a novice teacher or a mid-career teacher, you are now a leader and you can change this. How? Let me give you an example. How do you give your homework for your students? Have you tried to give them a content to be read as a homework, a piece of reading? Have you tried to give them, after teaching your lesson, whether your lesson is a problem-posing education that's applied correctly using the learning transfer, or a banking education? Have you tried to give them a content to be read at home, which encourage learning transfer and it is related to their culture and society problems? why not to try doing this? Why not, for example, to try working with other teachers to do extracurricular activities that serve SDGs? So actually, extracurricular activities are very, very effective and they are fast. You do not need to wait for the curriculum to be changed. You can just do extracurricular activities that will serve this, that will take the shape of problem-posing education and produce knowledge which is relevant to their community and society problems. So of course we have certain obstacles, the finance, the awareness, the knowledge, the capabilities. But yes, you as a teacher can have a short plan, a short-term plan to just change quickly. So how can we overcome these obstacles? I told you, as a teacher, you can just use the extracurricular activities, or you can just change the way you give your homework. You can just be a designer or an inventor and do not wait for the curriculum to be changed. But on the long-term plan, yes, we can overcome these obstacles. How? Private sectors. Private sectors should know that it is now their responsibility. They should start to support associations which serve the SDGs or which serve the problem-posing education. And let me tell you that not all SDGs associations are governmental. No, I'm going to give you just a very small example. For example, if you have heard about Nile TESOL actually they seek to provide the lifelong learning opportunities, and they try to have this type of education reach all people, and it is for free. So this is type of SDG. They try to provide this. So we can say that they are SDGs associations. So here you have the private sector, and the private sector needs to support SDGs association. So imagine if you have a support for SDGs association, you may have qualified teachers. They are just like, it costs nothing for the government just to bring them and hire them. Another thing is entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs actually can invest in vocational educational centers. Why? Because they can give them training on how to implement problem-posing education, and they can raise the awareness sessions for SDGs and its importance. So they have very, very great role, and they can work with the private sectors and the governments, because actually the governments have a great role. They can work there in providing qualified teachers, and maybe they can provide the appropriate conditions by helping governmental schools or SDGs associations by providing places and services. And of course, the governments also have great role, because they should start raising, of course, awareness sessions, but they also can work with the private sectors by providing them privileges. And they can work with entrepreneurs. And of course, they should start hiring professional leaders. And if this will cost them money, they have to work with other sectors like the private entrepreneurs. So of course, it is our role, all of us, private sectors, entrepreneurs, governments. So to wrap up, let me say that the inclusion of all stakeholders in decision making and the collaboration with private and non-governmental sector organizations must be part of the reform strategies by the government. So we have to move from shared leadership to distributed leadership, from banking education to problem posing one. And as I told you, you can just use the extracurricular activities if you are a novice teacher. But please, if you are a semi-retired teacher or a consultant, you can change the curriculum now. And of course, we have to start our awareness sessions in schools and short-term plan activities to implement the SDGs. And the most important thing is that you as an attendee even, or as a participant in the webinar, you have to be a lifelong learner. Why? To guarantee a lifelong learning opportunities for your students. So if you are not a lifelong learner, of course you are not going to help your students. So that's all about the presentation. These are my references for SDGs implementation and distributed leadership. Thank you a lot. So in case you need more information or references or any more information, you can just email me. So the floor is yours now, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Kariman. I am so grateful. What a wonderful presentation. I learned so much. Thank you for stopping sharing, because it's nice to see each other. There was a couple of really good questions. We're coming up on the end of the hour, but we have time for
Yes.
questions. Everyone,
Yes.
please feel free to ask. But one thing is that came to our attention is the role of government in leadership. So when we think about schools and institutions and employment contexts, universities, schools, how does the government help us, or how should the government be engaged with us as we build excellent programs and we encourage professionalism and high quality in English language teaching?
Yes. So, for example, you mean how the government can help the SDGs, non-governmental associations?
Maybe,
Or,
yeah,
yes.
it was actually Lynn's question, so she's going to tell you what it was a good question.
So what I'm
Yes.
I'm wondering, Kariman, is as an extension of what you
Yes,
were
I
saying.
read.
Yep. Are we asking them that?
Yes,
are we
you are
saying...
writing. This is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are saying that yes, that this would not happen overnight. Yes, I have read this. So as I told you, it is a long-term plan, of course. So I give you like two solutions. The short plan, like teachers can just start by extracurricular activities, by just the changing the way they teach by their assignments. But of course, we have a long-term plan by the government, of course, and the private sectors and the entrepreneurs. So the role of the government, from my point of view, is just to change their view of hiring. What type of leaders do they hire? For example, if I am having a governmental school, and of course here in Egypt in governmental schools, the government is the one responsible for hiring, for example, the school principal. Yes, but we have to make sure what type of leader do I hire? Okay. Yes, and also I have to check the capabilities and the information and the knowledge that this leader has. So, for example, is this leader aware of the problem posing education? Or is this leader ready to create what we call the learning community? So this is, if I'm talking about governmental schools or the governmental associations, so the government can easily help. But if I'm talking, for example, something like TESOL, Career Development or Knowledge TESOL, for example, I'm going to give a very short example here in Egypt for Knowledge TESOL. How the government can help, for example, them. So according to here in Egypt, they can just make it easier for Knowledge TESOL to reach governmental schools to train the teachers. They can have like a partnership with them in order to go and start teaching in their schools. This is not something easy here, for example. But yes, of course, the government has great role. And of course, the government itself should raise awareness of the problem posing and the SDGs, both of them. Because as I told you, it is about the leadership itself. So if they hired the qualified leadership, of course, everything will come easy.
That is absolutely key. There was another question, and Kareem asked it, but he's had to leave. He wanted to know
Yes.
if leadership should be distributed among teachers only or among both teachers and students, which I thought was interesting.
Yes, this is, yes. So let me say, yes, of course, yes. So if I'm talking about the students, yes, because part of what I'm saying is we have to create not a learner, but a leader. So yes, of course, you can distribute the leadership skills, but let me tell you, how are you going to distribute the leadership among your students? I'm not just I do not mean like give your student the leadership role to do so and so. No, I'm looking outside of the box. Let me tell you that in order to distribute leadership among your students, you have to implement what I have said, the SDGs, extracurricular activities. Because I'm not telling you to distribute leadership among your students, like, for example, let them participate in, for example, putting the class rules. I know that this is a leadership role, but no, I do not need this part. No, I need, let us go forward, let us go higher. So imagine that you implemented SDGs, extracurricular activities, and you ask your students to find a solution for one of their society problems. Don't you think that this is a leadership role for them? So if you give them, for example, not an assignment, a problem to be solved, no, a content to be read, and then they can write a blog or something like this. So you make knowledge relevant to them. Don't you think that this is leadership role to your students?
Mm.
So I think that, yes, of course, we can do this, but through SDGs extracurricular activities or your assignments.
Yes, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, please, I have.
Sure.
How are you? How are you, everyone? Thank you, Dr. Kariman, for your great presentation. I have a question, and I was thinking while you are talking. One day, I gave my students a text to be read. It was about a problem. A girl has many problems with her family, and she has to take care of her sick father until her mom came back from a business trip. And I asked them to find out the problems in each day and try to tell us the way of solution that this girl used to do, and what is the moral lesson behind all this text. I think this is one of the leadership implementing to my students or not.
Okay, this is leadership. Yes, okay. Yes, of course, you give them a kind of leadership role. And you taught the 4 C's, critical thinking. Yes, but you have to think. And yes, you proposed a problem and you asked them to solve the problem. But what do you think of putting this knowledge to be more relevant? Like, for example,
it is about the moral lesson, what we learned from this story or what we learned from this text. That
yes,
the moral lesson, it was about we should take good care of our parents as they took.
Okay,
I think
yes.
it's one of the leadership that skills that
Yes,
I'm not
of course,
sure. I'm
yes.
asking you.
Yes, okay. Yes, it has the leadership role. It has the leadership role, and it has the 4 C's, the 21st century skills. Okay, but I'm telling you, what do you think of relating this moral lesson to one of our society problem, to one of your society's problem? Like, for example, do we have in our, for example, if you have in your place, I think you are from Egypt, right? So,
Yes.
yes, okay. So can you relate this to one of our society's problem? Like, for example, we have a problem that, for example, this mother needs to work to earn their lives. So they are fighting poverty, for example. Or, for example, we have the problem of appreciation. in our society. So you need them to know the drawbacks of not appreciating others. So you need to make their problem relevant. Like, for example, do not let your students to ask, why should I do this? Why should I find solution for the sons and the daughters and the mother? Why? Yes. How is it useful to do this? Why it is useful to find a solution for them? But if you make it relevant to their society, if you find the problem behind this, if you make it relevant to their society, I think they will be engaged and motivated. You got the point.
Okay, yeah.
So
you mean we have to go beyond or higher than the self-reflection from life, private life to society.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so
to make them motivated and engaged. You're welcome.
Thank you, dear.
Wonderful dialogue.
Thank you. So I'm just looking at the comments.
You know, what I see is a good discussion, Shura's comment and your dialogue with Kariman, Shura, and Lynn's question. It's about initiative, yeah, teacher initiative, where the teacher goes beyond the small box. I think Kariman said, go out of the, think out of the box, something like it.
Yes. Yes, because actually, like I know that nowadays, especially because of coronavirus, we are just talking inside the box, like and having most of our webinars about online teaching, online drawbacks, our life balance after coronavirus. But why don't you think of all of these? But outside in your society, to your society, we have to look from the like the larger scale, as I said, not just your school and something. No. Look to your society. So if you need to implement the change, do not think to implement change in your school only or the organization where you live. No, think of changing the whole society, and this is your role as a teacher. You raise up generations who are responsible of changing the society, not the school. Yes. So you have to think again of your organization development, how you are going to develop your school and how you are going and what is the culture that you follow in your school. Yes. Any questions?
Well, thank you so much, Kariman. Thank you all. This has been a wonderful discussion. I learned so much about leadership, and I didn't think of these sort of distinctions that Kariman has raised up and put spotlight for us on these distinctions in the way we think about leadership. I think the future is bright for our profession because we have leaders right here on our session and many others worldwide. Very quickly, our next TESOL Career Path Development event will be on Saturday, 1 week from today, with two fabulous speakers, Ayman El Sheikh, who is in Qatar, and Okan Efyong, also in Qatar, but he is originally Nigerian. Each of those guys are going to be talking to us about a topic that's of importance to both of us. And I'm sorry that I don't remember. Lynn, do you remember their topic? I don't remember their topic. Anyway, they're going to be talking, I think, about language teaching associations.
I think so. I think it's about
oh, here it is. Africa ELTA and its activities to support teachers in their careers. So it's the Africa English Language Teaching Association, of which our beloved colleague Amira Salama is current president. from Egypt. And that session will address leadership as part of the Africa TESOL initiatives to support teachers through a language teaching association. So the project that they did most recently related to women, called the EVE project. And there are other many activities that Africa English Language Teachers Association is doing. So please join us. Heartfelt thanks to you, Kariman.
Thank you.
I hope everybody has a nice evening and afternoon and morning. I'm about to go virtually to Turkey to a conference that's going on right now.
Okay.
So heartfelt thanks, Kariman. Shukran gazilan. Merci awi.
Allahu.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. Bye bye.